When I first came across virtual reality, I was really interested to use it with first-hand experience, as I only came across it briefly during my undergraduate degree. I also learned best when using a variety of learning styles, so adding a practical element definitely was beneficial to my studies.
The Advanced Software Skills in Urban Design proved to be a very useful module because we got to discover this new technology that helped us improving our design skills.
When finding out that augment and virtual reality would be used within the module to represent and display urban design, I thought this tool would be a great interest for me to learn about and look at how these different topics link together. In addition to that, I thought it would be a practical skill to have to add to my CV and for future lines of work.
What particularly surprised me with my experience using virtual reality is the ease of use aspect. It's really easy to create a model in the software packages and then uploading it to a virtual reality system.
I was very surprised how virtual reality helps us understand the space around us. For example, I used virtual reality with one of my 3D designs.
With regards to the teaching of augment and virtual reality, I think it would definitely be an asset for disciplines such as urban design, planning and architecture. As previously mentioned, it gives you a new perspective on how the interaction of buildings, landscapes in the built environment. With augment and virtual reality becoming more accessible and more interrelated with urban design, I definitely think that it would be an asset to have within the syllabus.
My outlook has definitely been improved in terms of understanding urban design using virtual reality. I wasn't really sure how to understand a 2D sketch and turn it into 3D in my mind, so it's definitely helped a layperson like me understand the different aspects of 3D design.
This project was focusing on developing the future design consultants, and this is what my future is. So with the advanced technologies, it's gonna change the way a designer and their clients gonna perceive their designs before their implementation, and I found close to it. So I was I was motivated to get involved and take up this role.
I think there were different reasons, but one of them was that learning new softwares, new technologies, and also I think that improving my own capabilities for doing design in the future. So that was the main reason that I feel interested. But also, I never had before the experience or the opportunity to work in a research team. So I think that was also very important for me, being part of a research team for the first time in my life. These new skills made me stand among other people, and I had already one interview, and they were very interested about my research project, being part of this opportunity. And I think that in that way we are kind of assets for the new company, and then we will be able to put in practice everything that we have been learning, and they will benefit for that.
Virtual and augmented reality is already being used by big firms in the field of design, and I think obviously it's gonna help me get a preference. With advanced technology, each and every firm tries to, even the smaller firms are trying to incorporate in the design process, and I hope it would help me get some priority.
Earlier in 2016, we run a module called International Field Class, and usually this was to visit Istanbul. But unfortunately at the time, Istanbul was under significant threat of terrorism acts. So we had to cancel the trip, but the module still continued. I was approached by the teaching team to look at alternative ways that we could bring Istanbul to the students rather than taking them there. And immediately I kind of considered some of the options for creating a virtual field trip, and I started exploring the use of virtual reality. At the time, 360 panoramic videos and photographs were becoming popular, and that sort of planted the seed for further investigation into these sorts of technologies and how they could impact on learning and teaching. Fast forward several months, and after working with the teaching team, particularly Bobby, who's the MA UDP Urban Design and Planning Programme Director, between us we realised that there was actually a lot of scope for the application of virtual and augmented reality technology within teaching of urban design. Urban design is principally concerned with spatial cognition, students' understanding of space and how it relates and how it connects. And a lot of urban design is done at a godlike view. So students are always designing as though they were objective to their model, looking downwards. We were really interested to explore how virtual reality could bring life-size models to the student, bring their creations to life and give them a different view of their model in a way that they could then empathise with their stakeholders, but it would help them also understand their models and their designs in a different way. We also recognised its value as a communication tool, so that students could work with stakeholders to communicate their designs and help stakeholders actually realise what the end result might be like. So we saw lots of applicability, and so we began looking at how we could introduce this into learning and teaching, and the ways and methods that we could embed it into their learning. We went through quite an extensive process of testing. The reason we wanted to test so many platforms was because we were trying to find a workflow for students that was very simple and quite integrated with the tools that they use already. Our students are learning design skills. They are designers first and foremost. They're not programmers, they're not computer scientists. So we didn't want to take large amounts of time out of the curriculum for students to learn how to create basically environments that they could view their models in. We wanted to use something that was off the shelf and purpose-built. Though the technology has been around for a while, it's still developing, it's still very, very new. So there were lots of different software tools out there that have been made primarily for the architectural market, but obviously the principle is still the same for urban design. So we tested quite a few different platforms, particularly for virtual reality, where the workflow was as simple as dragging and dropping their SketchUp files, which is the proprietary software that we use for modelling, into a visualisation environment. Being in part a technological project, using quite new technologies, we have come across several challenges, none of them insurmountable, but tasks we've had to overcome. The first has been primarily the accessibility of the technology for students. This technology isn't off-the-shelf consumer type that everybody's got available to them. So we had to make kits that students could borrow on loan, but they could also access during part of their teaching. They needed to be portable because we don't have the resource in the teaching space to have a permanent area set up for this technology. So we invested quite a lot of time in designing portable kits that were reasonably lightweight, bearing in mind the amount of technology that they were moving around. And they were therefore then accessible to students. We also wanted to make sure that whatever software we were using on this hardware platform was also accessible. One of our preferred methods very early on was that we didn't have to have students come into or onto campus to use the technology. If they wanted to test any of their models during the iterative design process, they could still access very low-tech, low-key version of this technology, and the platform would still work on it. I'm talking about Google Cardboard here, which gives you a very low-tech version of what we're doing in class with virtual reality with the HTC Vive.